Hi everybody, my name is Chris Kelzer. I'm with Victory Aviation Company and Victory Flight Training based in Denton, Texas. We established Victory Flight Training to provide uncommon value to a whole spectrum of aviators. Civilian aviators from private pilot to ATP, US, international. Our vision is military jet skills for any pilot. And we offer turbine familiarization, we offer upset prevention and recovery training, full checkout on the S-211 to get a type rating, and S-211 on the back of your FAA license. We also do formation training because, as we're going to find out here shortly, we have two of these the Marchetti S-211 jets, so we can take you up and check you out and get you your formation qualifications as well. So as part of that uncommon value, we're going to give you a tour of our two S-211s, talking about some pre-flight items, talking about basic systems on the aircraft, capabilities, and what you may experience when you come fly with us. So with that, let's start around going into the cockpit. How about we start there? We'll just go around the aircraft clockwise. So as you can see, it is a two-place former military trainer made in Italy by Marchetti company, mid-1980s. This aircraft, and Eric, if you pan over there and show the new one, you can see we've got this aircraft here. They're both orange and white. The one on the other side has got US Navy livery on it, although it never served in the US Navy. This aircraft here, the closer one, is in its original Singapore military paint scheme. The one that Eric just showed has been repainted, like I said, has been restored. It's got a Garmin cockpit. So we're going to start with the stock military configuration aircraft. We'll show you the cockpit, we'll do a walk around, and then we'll move over to the rebuild and restored aircraft with the US Navy markings on it. So let me hop in. It's a handy little step that once you climb in the cockpit, you always want to make sure you give it a little toe flip so you don't look like a rookie flying around with your step down. As Eric brings the camera up, you can see that there's a lot of bells and whistles in this cockpit. This is mid-1980s, really probably 1970s military technology. All analog gauges. There's a very early electronic HSI down here in the center part, lower center of the instrument panel. Other than that, basic military mid-1980s technology. You can see we've brought it to the 21st century a little bit. Garmin 660 handheld mounted on the left and wired in. We've got an iPad running ForeFlight. Got to have some kind of a electronic flight bag. Up above here you can see a Garmin antenna, and we also mount a Stratus antenna for two sources of data coming in. But aside from that, it is basic mid-80s. No autopilot. We do have ILS, VOR for civilian approaches. We can do a TACAN approach. Additionally, in the front cockpit, you can see we have canopy breakers. We've got over my shoulder here a GoPro mount. Our GoPros, we can put them in the front or the back depending on where the client sits for flying. The client always starts out in the back for a familiarization flight and then can transition to the front. So we got GoPro mounts front and back, and they wire into the comms so you can get all the communications on the GoPro. The front and back cockpits are pretty much identical. There's some pretty important emergency components that are in the front that are not in the back, and that's why we start the clients off in the back seat. The canopy hinges to the right, like you can tell. There's a handle on the right side of the cockpit where I can release that. To close it, I'm going to bring it down. I'll quit talking. Lock. And then a pneumatic strut to help you with boosting the canopy up to lock it in the other position. Why don't let me hop out and we'll start going around the aircraft. I'll go in a basic pre-flight format, but I'll add some stuff. We got some extra panels off so you can see the inside of the aircraft. So typically you start in an intake or somewhere on the left in the cockpit and go around clockwise. I always stick my head down there, look for bird gusts or anything that doesn't look right. Looks pretty clean. We'll come around this side. With these aircraft, it's got the standard pitot static system with the pitot tubes we have covered up and the static ports. This system can drain through 3 little drains on either side of the aircraft. You just stick a pen or screwdriver in there and it just releases the valve, and any kind of condensation there will come out. Nose tire, this one, the scissor link is actually backwards from parking it, but you can see this will connect here and give you nose wheel steering, mechanical nose wheel steering, plus or minus 18 degrees. But when we disconnect this with a little castle nut, it gives you full castering for maneuvering it on the ground. take a look here, Eric, in the internals. The nose in this jet, like I mentioned, is full stock military, so it's got all the old type avionics, VHF radio, it's got inverters, it's got a TACAN, great big heavy TACAN box, it's got lead weight in the front for weight and balance, so a ton of avionics. Take a look at this, remember this, because when we see the other aircraft with the Garmin modification, it does make a big difference. Now coming around the right side, if you want to duck down, Eric, and just kind of look up, you'd always take a look in the nose wheel well to make sure everything looks good. Back around left. There are 2 oxygen tanks on either side of the nose here underneath that avionics bay that we just took a look at. There's a shut-off valve right here. We have that open and ready to go, and the other aircraft will show it there. Here we've got an AOA vane. It doesn't actually provide any AOA data in this aircraft. Unfortunately, it fed a data monitoring and recording system that the Singapore Air Force used when it was in service. So we'd like to get that wired for AOA indications. Here you see an open ram air scoop. So if you need to clear the air out of the cockpit, maybe your air conditioning or your environmental control system's not working, you get pretty good airflow in that when you're doing a couple hundred knots. And it's just a handle in the cockpit. Manual scoop. The rear cockpit's got another one down underneath the airplane. In fact, if you go low a little bit, you can see the other one down underneath. So we're giving you some details not normally seen. This rescue panel, it's got a handle with wires. In military service, they had ejection seats that were hot, which we do not. And it also had detonation cord, plastic explosive that ran the whole perimeter of the canopy. So for an on the ground rescue, somebody could come up, open this little hatch, if I can get it closed, and we'll get that afterward. Grab the wire, run out like 20 feet and look the other direction and pull the thing, and boom, and blow the canopy off to get the inside occupants out of there. So we do not fly with hot seats in either aircraft. We can, as far as a risk management plan goes, there's more risk in having hot ejection seats with rockets, pyro, all that stuff, when you're flying multiple different kind of people, different kind of backgrounds, lack of training. And so we do have parachutes. We have a full risk management plan in the case that anything goes awry with the airplane in flight or on the ground. But the rockets are not hot for all those reasons. Coming into this intake, Eric can stuff the camera down that thing. You can take a look there as well. Okay, let's take a look at the the wing route. You can see we have a stall strip to ensure that the inside part of the wing stalls before the outside, so you maintain aileron control. Obviously, it's a pretty short, stubby wing, but it's a great big fat wing. A little bit of sweep to it, so you have these fences to keep the airflow going down the wing and not flowing out towards the tip. But its stall characteristics are extremely benign. I'm not going to say it's exactly like a Cessna, but if you get an aerodynamic warning or aerodynamic buffet pre-stall, a little bit of wing drop with the stall, and then just by easing the back stick and braking the angle of attack, the aircraft is flying again. Let's take a look at the gear area. See our brand new tires. We go through tires, training people, doing lots of touch and goes, but these are within the last month or so. Stout landing gear. This aircraft was made to train student pilots who may have 50, 60 hours in aircraft total. So very strong gear, hydraulically controlled. And if you crank the camera to the right, you can see that the speed brake here is just cracked a little bit. We usually crack them on touchdown so we can take a look in there and look for leaks. That's the speed brake panel underneath the fuselage. It lowers vertically to help you slow down. And if you back up just a little bit and show that this forward door panel, it hydraulically closes during the gear sequence, and then once we get airborne, the first thing that happens is this door panel would lower, make room for the gear, the wheel, and tire coming up into the jet, and then close again. And look at this, the Singaporeans can't even spell tire. T-Y-R-E. Who ever heard of such a thing? Crazy. Up here we've got, it says bite breakers, built-in test and equipment. There's some circuit breakers in here. We have our Hobbs meter for flight time set in there, and then some various indicators that you check post-flight and pre-flight. So typically we'll come out here, back to the forward, the leading edge of the wing, Come all the way out. We got landing and taxi lights. This aircraft has the old style bulbs, and since we're right here, look this way. This one's got LEDs with a pulse and flash mode on them, which is pretty sweet. Makes you look like a G650 coming in on approach until you get close. Around, watch the static wicks. We got some covers on them. The ailerons in these jets are hydraulically boosted, which means the roll rate is fantastic. It's all just push rods and pulleys for the controls. Nothing else is hydraulic. But the hydraulically boosted ailerons give you a fantastic roll rate. The flaps are electrically controlled, a little electric motor in there. We've got them at takeoff flaps or half flaps right now. And again, we do that after flight so that for our post-flight and our pre-flight, we can take a look at the flaps and the flap actuators. And you can actually see those as Eric brings the camera around and looking inside there. You can see the equipment. Now look up here in the side of the fuselage. There are 2 access panels, quick releases on both sides of the fuselage. We've got an environmental control system in there for pressurization. There's an air conditioning system in there, which when it's 110 degrees on the ramp in Texas, it helps, but you're still sweating, trust me. And there's other avionics, radios, and the IFF and ILS avionics are back there as well. Now coming down here, we can look right here. This is the hydraulic servicing panel. There's a reservoir in there with a sight gauge showing you that the hydraulic fluid is up there, so it's at least to that height within that reservoir, and then a bunch of servicing connections. And it's a good spot to be able to look down into the innards of the jet and make sure there's nothing for leaks or problems. 2 other nice panels on this side enable you to look in. The engine control unit, or it's basically a FADEC, it's a digital engine control, is the little black box right up there on top, and that's the engine case that you're looking at, all the silver. Pratt & Whitney JT15D-4C. It's a Citation jet engine from the probably from the early series of Citations, but very reliable. Millions of flight hours on that particular engine. Excellent, excellent motor. Another small panel here enables you to look in. I'm not sure if the light is looking okay there, Eric. Looks like there you go. So you can see the connecting rod that goes forward to the throttle. So it's important to check that thing out right here. Check that connection. And then you can see the hydromechanical metering unit that controls fuel flow in the absence of operation of the electrical control unit. So you got a couple different ways to meter fuel to the motor. That's an important panel. Checking general integrity aft here. We've got the radio antenna up towards the top. You can see we've got the November 123 Victor Victor, the call sign for this particular airplane. Elevator. Check basic integrity, look up the tailpipe. That looks pretty good. 2,500 pounds of thrust in this engine.
Is the elevator boosted?
The elevator's not boosted. Yeah, it's just, it's the thing about Italian airplanes, and I've not flown the SF-260, but I've had a lot of people that have told me that it's wonderful to fly. Control harmony is great, a real joy. I've flown a couple folks that own SF-260s because it's a Marchetti, and they wanted to fly the Marchetti jet, come out here and say it flies very similarly, just because the stick, the rudders, the control, the feel of the aircraft is outstanding. And so the elevator has great control, even down to slow air speeds, barely above stall speed. If you're clean, you're stalling about 95 knots or so. So you can fly this thing at 100, 105, 110 knots and still have excellent elevator control. You can fishtail the aircraft with the rudders, and then of course the ailerons give you great roll rate down slow because of the hydraulic boost. Coming around the left side of the airplane, engine oil, check panel. You can look in there and wait for the camera. There you go. So right there, if you can see my fingers, it's actually got a dipstick. Let me pull it out. So standard dipstick, which is kind of cute. And the last thing over here we'll look at is battery compartment. We got a Concorde aircraft battery, aftermarket, civilian, commercial aircraft battery. And you can unhook them up. We normally leave them unhooked between flights. And we'll close that up. Here you can put in ground power for a GPU, a ground power unit. That's the option there. All right, let's move over to 250 Charlie Foxtrot, the rebuilt aircraft. This is also a Singapore aircraft. This aircraft has been rebuilt, has had the cockpits redone. The cockpits look brand new. We'll show you a walk around externally then, and we'll jump in the cockpit as well. So first off, same kind of features, but this is a big difference. You remember all the military avionics that were in 123 Victor Victor, the stock military aircraft. Here it's wide open. There's some Garmin control boxes and a couple of cannon plugs, the pitot-static system lines, but aside from that, it's pretty open. The nose is a lot lighter, so it's good for storing intake plugs, exhaust plugs, and that lightweight type gear when you go on a cross country. The oxygen stop valve, which was closed over there, you can see we got it open. We got a remove before flight tag. You just secure that to make sure you don't leak oxygen out between flights. And really just kind of pan through and you can see all the same things, but this aircraft, brand new paint job, looks mint. It's painted like a Navy T-45. The gentleman, Doug Matthews, that did his shop did the restoration. He was a naval aviator, so he likes to paint these things in Navy colors, which does cause some confusion at air shows. A lot of people walking up thinking this guy is still flying airplanes in the military, which is not the case, and thinking that this is a T-45. So take some explanation when you go to air shows. It's a little tight in here. Come on through, Eric, if you would, and we can take a look at the same hydraulic servicing panel and reservoir around the back. 250 Charlie Foxtrot. Flap track. Watch your noggin here. I'm gonna pop the canopy. You can see that those rescue options, the panels are on both aircraft, inoperative for how we use it. So to climb in the cockpit, we had the other canopy open when we walked up. There's a step. Probably shouldn't teach everybody this, and now all the crowds at air shows are gonna be jumping in the airplane, but it's a secret. So we'll pop the thing open, hop in. I'm going to turn the battery on. You can take a look at the Garmin setup. So it takes just a couple seconds for the Garmin to come up. You can reset the master caution light to get that to go out. So just on an initial look, you can see this is a much cleaner cockpit because much of the other avionics have been removed and consolidated in the Garmin. Looks brand new. We have a GTN 750 in the lower left, a Garmin Autopilot, G3X Touch, the experimental equivalent of the G1000 up here, center, a G5 as a backup with its own battery and own attitude and heading reference system, backup airspeed, backup altimeter, engine gauges, the warning and caution panel showing up nicely. This panel handle over here was how the pilot would have initiated the plastic explosive in the canopy, the det cord in the canopy. So if you just wanted to blow the canopy, you would grab this thing, pull it aft, and the explosive would go on the canopy. And that's a good question. There are a few yellow and black stripe controls up here. If you look on the lower left over here by the gear indicators, there's an emergency fuel shutoff handle where you rotate it 45 clockwise, pull it back, rotate at 45 counterclockwise and release. Now the fuel is shut off at the source, so I'll give it a little pull, rotate 45, push it back in, fully seated, and rotate it again. So now the fuel is restored. And we had a shut-off light come on while I have that thing off. The one down here in the center is the emergency landing gear handle, where you pull that out, you rotate 90 degrees, it releases the up locks manually, in which case the gear should come down locked, all three of them, and those large gear doors that we showed you in the other aircraft that normally hydraulically close, those would stay open. Otherwise, you got a park and brake up here, standard controls on the stick, and Garmin. Most people are fairly familiar with Garmin's in the glass panel. So with the two jets, it's really nice having this one because we can offer the Garmin glass displays, especially for upset prevention, recovery training for corporate pilots, business jets, even airline pilots, and a lot of folks want to come out and fly it. They were familiar with Garmin, they like the autopilot, they know the avionics, and they enjoy that. Some people come out and want to have the full military type experience, and they want the analog mid-80s military technology. So we were able to offer both to match whatever the client may desire. I hope you enjoyed the walk around the two Marchetti S-211s with Victory flight training. You can download the S-211 flight manual free on our website as a PDF. We've got multiple videos there on the website. We got a link to Facebook and an Instagram page with many customer testimonial videos and statements on the website as well as photos and other videos you can download. If you got any questions, contact info is on there as well. The website itself is s-211training.com. That's s211training.com. Send us an email at fly. The email is fly@s211training.com or s-211training.com. Give us a holler. We'd love to fly with you.
All right, here we go. So 8,000 feet, we're going to bring the nose up, get a little bit of a climb in.
Contact center 132.97 now higher for you.
There's 8.5.
3297, so long, Cessna
8.5, 8.5. That's what it feels like if you're blue.
Hook 94 right, correct, Ardmore, VOR.
Damn, that's cool. I've never done that.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, isn't it? There's a full -1G.
Taxi 313, and for an approach and a pause.